Hello and welcome back to Divinity Original Sin 2 Honor Mode Plus Run. I think today it is time to explore the northern part of Driftwood a little bit more. I spent about 1 hour crafting. I just wanted to show you the results of it. Basically, Sibyl, our ranger, now has about 20 to 40 arrows of arrows each, with the exception of knockdown arrows, which are really hard to get by. So she has a good dozen of them. The way I did it is I basically just now and then waited until the merchants restocked. For those of you who don't know it, merchants restock every hour or when you level up. Clearly we haven't leveled up, so it was simply a matter of restocking, really. So I waited a little bit and that was the result. Other than that, really no change. We just cleaned up the inventory a little bit more and, well, that was about it. So we're now, for the first time, we're going to run through the northern part. I told you that we haven't taken any quests, and there's already the first major hurdle that we're going to take, which is this little gentleman over here, who is the restless Scarecrow. And that gentleman, or rather non-gentleman. So the Scarecrow is a very, very nasty challenge on Tactician. We definitely need to watch out in order to not completely wipe. If you do him too early, basically you're getting stumped. And I'll show you exactly how you can avoid getting stumped.
All freshly strung. A shame. He's all right then, yeah. That's last law, all right. I hate the Magisters for what they've done. Stuck me, brother. I keep going though, hoping to get to Ark sooner than later. Lucian's Day crowds will be come back if you need. I'll be whittling away. Useful. You mean deadly? Used to make bows and fletch arrows, but left that hobby behind.
We need 3 persuasion here, and luckily for us, we just reskilled persuasion.
You've thought about taking up the loot. It's like I always said. That's last. I hate the magic. I keep going though. Hope it's useful.
And we are going with...
Used to make bows and fletch arrows, but left that hobby behind.
That's a good question. Well, there we go.
There's no shortage of suffering, that's for sure. Maybe come back later then. I need a bit of time to...
Alright, so while she's carving up...
Hello. Use the best. I like playing too.
We are just going to really quickly use the opportunity to take her grenades, take the high skill tier book, and the potions, really. I mean, we don't need any of the other stuff. Yeah. Good.
Same to you.
Okay, so now that we successfully robbed a merchant, we are going to go for the Scarecrow fight. And I promised you that I'm going to show you how to set that fight up correctly. So first and foremost, let's explain the Scarecrow Encounter. If you're examining him, rest the Scarecrow, you will see... Well, you're not going to see it because he's not in combat mode, but I'm still going to explain it. So each of these Scarecrows here really is going to start to live, which means we're fighting against 6 or 7 enemies. The problem really is this bugger here, because the rest of the Scarecrow is having a permanent aura of terror, which means everyone is afraid, unless they are having magical armor. So our absolute requirement for this whole fight will be to retain our magical armor and to spread out as much as possible. His aura is about, let's say from where he stands, about that size here, a little bit more than the fence. So if you can withstand or be out of range of his aura, you're going to be fine. And the way we're really going to approach that encounter is most of our heroes will be out of combat for the beginning, while Syken is going to self-buff himself and is going to discuss with him.
You are sick at heart. Dear, a great. Don't.
So we're resisting,
I am so.
and by that, the whole encounter immediately starts. So he puts on an evasion and teleports himself up here. That's what he's always doing, is like his standard move, and he will use one shot, which hits for 200. And in order to not get knocked out and be feared, I highly recommend that you do exactly what I did and protect yourself with Armor of Frost. So let's inspect him a little bit, and now we're going to set up the encounter. First and foremost, he put evading on himself, so he's not going to be easily like knocked down in the first round. But that's okay. And he has this permanent aura, which is just going to fear everyone. And fear means they are not doing anything for one round, which means, again, if that's a continuous effect, you are effectively out of the combat. So if he's standing inside of all of your allies, he's simply going to overwhelm them. More so, all of his Scarecrow buddies here are dealing earth damage. So they are taking away your armor, which in the end means you are going to suffer significant damage onto magical armor, but they are almost very vulnerable to all of the elements except poison, which means what we're going to do is quite simple. We are making sure that we're not entering combat, and let's start this with a physical incarnate, to make sure that we're abusing the fact that these guys have a low physical armor. So we're staying out of combat. We are, indeed, going to buff up our incarnate. Wow, look at these stats. Oh my lord. Incarnate has 1600 armor. Wow, that is really a lot. We're of course going to give him a little bit of clear sight, which by the way would remove terrifying, but it does not make you immune against terrifying. So peace of mind is helping you, but you need to get you really need to get your magical armor up first. So we're hasting ourselves here, and we are going to start with engaging into combat. Perfect, that worked out well. Now let's use lows to buff up Seville. Really, we technically don't need physical armor. I'm fortifying to make sure that we're not teleported away, because that's also what they like to do once in a while, just teleporting people away, and that's a major bummer as well. By the way, I could use Farsight on her, because she's just short of being in range, so we will need to teleport quite a few of these guys into range. So Syken gets fortification as well, but even more so he gets an Armor of Frost, which brings him up to solid 600 magical resistance. So that's really, really good. We're not going to use him because he's these artillery plant, because they are resistant to poison, but they are very vulnerable to physical attacks, which in the end means let's just summon an incarnate. Make sure that it has somewhat reliable defense, so it's not running away. Let's make also sure that we're really quickly buffing it whilst we're not in combat yet. So Farsight infusion, and we're getting power infusion as well. I think we haven't learned power infusion yet. No, we only have Farsight infusion, but that's better than nothing. So that's good. We got him in combat, and might as well start with like creating a little bit of a surface, because I basically would want to dish out some fire damage, and there's an advantage in like having everything in a covered in oil, so that would be helpful. Just putting out a couple of oil fields over here, because we're going to teleport these guys into exactly that region. Good. So here we go. Lois is going to join the encounter. She's going to haste herself beforehand. Right? So last person not being in the encounter is our tank, whom I think I want to actually move into the encounter, but we're going to stealth him as close as possible, and we're going to start with teleporting the boss into this field of pain. So we're moving him in, and we're teleporting the boss down here, which means you have a perfect setup. His teleportation failed. You just have a wonderful, wonderful setup here, and as far as I'm concerned, this guy here can't be knocked down for now, but that's okay. I mean, you know, I don't care. Saiken is just angry, he's furious, so he might as well start wailing on this other guy, which, there you go, that's a solid hit. And we're going to knock the Scarecrow down, so that's definitely going to be 1 CC. Maybe on top of it we're going to hit the boss on top of it, which we haven't, which it's fine, like it was a 10% chance. Okay, so boss is still evading, which sucks, to be honest. We killed one of them. We're going to use our ranged attack to kill the other one, which means 2 of them are already down. Let's make sure Saiken is not going to panic, so we are invigorating his magical armor. And the problem with him is he still has this unfortunate evasion, which I don't like. So let's deal some alternative damage. There you go. Nice little fire damage. And believe me, very, very soon he's going to die. When his evasion runs out, there's nothing else stopping us from killing him. So, might as well for now. Get some blood arrows. Buff Saiken just a little bit. And there we go. So this guy here is purely, his only job is to effectively like block whatever is up here. I was under the impression there's the last Scarecrow there in the red field, but I might have been wrong. Good, so this guy is immune against physical attacks, but he certainly isn't immune against good old magical attacks, and that's what we're effectively using. Just wait for it, buddy. When your when your buff runs out, you are going to be in a world of pain. I hit Syken unfortunately with it, but I think he's still going to be fine. So there we go. He still has his evasion up. That's not going to help him. So now we can see he's terrified, which means we need to find a way of quote-unquote unterrifying him, otherwise he's going to lose his turn. He's just standing there, basically doing nothing at this moment in time. So the way I'd like to deal with it is just giving him magical armor, which means he will be able to act next turn. Oh gosh, Sybil could... She could be hammering some damage. She had 6 action units, and we couldn't even use it. Very unfortunate. Anyways, I guess you guys get the point. I mean... Oh, I should have used Clear Mind. I wasn't on... Ah, my bad. Okay. Should have used Clear Mind on him on top of that. So, there you go. Well, you learn something new every single day, so I definitely should have used Clear Mind there. To be honest, it really doesn't matter now. I'm just resummoning the minion up here. Gonna solidly buff him, and then the minion is going to kill the Scarecrow. Good, he's knocked down, which means he cannot act. And on our turn, we're just like hammering him. And I suppose that's it. Oh, almost. So yeah, that was the Scarecrow encounter. That was normal tactician mode. You've seen it was almost no challenge at all. That's the reason why I wanted to up the challenge, but apparently this mod does not up this specific encounter. It's one of the hardest encounters in Act 2 at the time when you're doing it, when you run through it. But if you know how to deal with it, it really poses not much of a challenge. There are a couple of beehives over here, which is fine, because the beehives can be used to refill our honey, as you guys know. And by the way, I learned today I learned one of the coolest tricks of how to more efficiently craft. Once you have your recipes, so once you craft it for the first time, you kind of can repeat the crafting process by just using the normal recipe mode. But hear me out, there is just something way cooler than I would have expected. So far, so good. I mean, this year, you know, everyone pretty much knows that, so that's not a big deal. But it takes some time. Here, however, wait a second. Here, however, is like a pro tip. If you're going on to recipes and you have the recipes, really, so what you can do is you can like basically go on to Charming Arrowhead. You can click onto the minus to maximize it. Just click combine and bam, there you go. 12 Charming Arrowheads right there. You go onto arrows and 12 arrows right there. The only thing that like doesn't work is something that you haven't crafted yet, which in this case shouldn't be much of an issue. I think though that honey is not in here, because you effectively need the beehive for the honey. So this part of it, like the refilling part, you would need to do that over and over. But it's a perfect opportunity to just craft the arrows, because quite frankly, I think the Charming arrows are one of the best arrows. So I would highly recommend you to use them. Specifically, if you have stronger magical damage than what I'm having in this party, they become incredibly valuable. So 24 of them should be enough. And we're refilling the honey one last time. And that should be okay. We now got 12 honey jars. That's way more than we would need. Good, so that's a little bit crafting for professionals. Cool part about that is we're now having so many Charming arrows. Like, look at that, 50 Charming arrows. That's just awesome. Good, she has really 20 each, with the exception of the fucking knockdown arrows, which are very hard to come by. Okay, let's do a couple more quests in the next video.